Welcome back, all of you, for holding to the session. I would like to welcome Svetlana formally, Svetlana Zenz, who is from Myanmar, and she is a senior digital program associate, Myanmar Center for Responsible Business. And since I have been to Myanmar, I can relate, things there. Thank you very much for agreeing to speak in the CNX 2020. We are really looking forward to have a great conversation from you. Dear Talan Sultanov from Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, I am delighted to also say that even I have been to his place and also seen the location where he has implemented wireless communities. So welcome, Talan Sultanov, I would like to introduce Talan by saying that he's a multifaceted person who is a consultant, who is an advisor. He advises government, and every year he starts something new to show to the people that how innovation can continue. So wonderful. Thank you very much for joining. Anand Gautam, my neighbor, Nepal. Actually you are my very close neighbor because I was born close to Raxol, and that's very close to Nepal. And thank you very much for being enthusiastic to take wireless community networks in Nepal. And also I would like to introduce Anand by saying that he is doing a deep research on various community networks to understand who does what and what are the best things, and also video recording his travel from one location to other with equipments to deploy in mountains. So wonderful. Anand, thank you very much. The topic of our discussion is rather too deep and too serious, which is actually access during the pandemic, saving democracy, citizenship, and education. Incidentally, this question can relate a lot in Myanmar, I'm sure, and even in Kyrgyzstan. We are certainly having challenges in our democratic country in India, but to bring community networks with the perspective of wireless and internet shutdowns, and for those who are connected, for them internet shutdown. For those who are not connected, it's a permanent shutdown. And community networks is in the middle of both, because it usually takes the connectivity in the area where people are unconnected. And it may be very interesting that many community networks continue to function intranet if the internet shutdown happens. So tell us, and I would start with ladies first, with Svetlana. And also because you are very close to our country, so you have a privilege to start first. Actually all of us are within 2 hours of travel time by air. So Svetlana, please share, and for the benefit of everyone who is actually here, is that how community networks would have played role, or do you know that if it has played role in pandemic? Because not having internet itself is a disaster, So in any case, community network is a challenge to disaster, or a mitigation to the disaster. But in this kind of scenario of disaster, which is so long and still continuing, how do you see the role of community networks, especially in bringing human rights in place?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. This question requires, I guess, like 10 hours of discussion, but I will try to make it short within the panel time, of course. Well, just a quick introduction on what's actually in Myanmar right now here and why is it important in terms of community networks. Of course, connection to internet is very important, and now we are not really associate our life without internet or without any connectivity. However, in Myanmar, there is a case which is now the longest internet shutdown case. Since last year, 9 townships on some of townships of Rakhine State and some townships of Chin State were put in the blackout. Of course, the community, international community, local, and everyone who has somehow affiliated by saying that's like everyone, we try to raise the voice about that and let the world community, the global community know what's going on, because it's, I mean, a part of the conflict zone. There is a problem with the connectivity in internet as well, which put people in quite, let's say, unsecure situation, and may cause a really disastrous consequences. Um, but since last year, there were some big changes within the internet shutdown. I'm not saying that it came back fully, but this year, in August 2nd, government decided to lift restrictions, but partially. So they imposed 2G networks technology in terms of kind of letting people to have access to internet, but at the same time they didn't have access to internet, because as you may know, technology is going further and things are developing, and like when we had a picture of 3 megabytes, we were happy, and now it's like it's nothing. So we can expose, like I'm calling you to expose yourself on those times, and now people in 8 townships, like 7 townships in Rakhine and 1 township in Chin State, are living now in these conditions, where people don't have access to education, they don't have access to health assistance, they don't have access to the public services. Business is stuck there because you cannot have even the hotel booking in that area, although Rakhine State is very close to the seaside, and it could be a very nice tourism destination. Then, like overall, the general perception of socio-economical development is kind of put on pause there with this 2G system. And as we know that with help of our colleagues from Myanmar Digital Rights Forum, for example, they also conduct the research. It's been said that people are putting them in danger in certain situations when they were trying to get connection. Some of them were climbing the trees upper, so to receive at least from the neighbor townships where still some kind of internet exists, get some connection. Some people are trying to find the broadband internet, which is in Myanmar is a huge problem, especially in the rural areas, because needed to say that penetration of mobile internet in Myanmar is about like 85%. What about the broadband is like 10 to 15%. Although taking in consideration that Myanmar geographical position is very good for submarine cables and could have like more wider distribution, but it's still a problem. So, and in terms of community network development, that could be as one of the solutions where people could at least have access to education service. So because we know that the people, especially students, already lost this opportunity to catch up with educational curriculum. That it also could be helpful to health sector, as all the time updating information on COVID positive cases, or measures which are taking towards prevent the spread of the virus in that affected areas. So all this stuff is needed and important for right now. And so far we are not aware if any community networks are going to be imposed in those areas. And well, what we're hoping that the internet restrictions will be lifted and 3 and 4G will be imposed back, and people will have better connection at the end. And of course, on the human rights sector, I mean, we always say human rights, but I would say human rights equals digital rights, because our life is imposing to the digital side now and more. So it's we cannot exist just with the human rights definition. We should exist human rights and digital rights definition, where we have a right to have an access to internet, We have a right to express ourselves, like freedom of expression, and of course, right to privacy and data protection in this case, which is
Wonderful,
in
wonderful.
Myanmar again
Yeah,
a
I mean,
big challenge.
I'm glad you said that, just having human rights is not gonna enough if you don't know how to exercise the rights, or you don't have access to exercise the rights. Can I take the liberty to go to a slightly farther neighbor than the nearest neighbor? I will give you, call you the last Anand. Can I request Talant to take the, unmute your mic and share what you have been able to achieve through community networks in terms of bringing democratic rights to the community, and that's what we are talking about, because community network is also about exercising your basic right, your human right, your privileges, your natural rights and things like that. So how do you I mean, what you have been able to do to achieve this in your area, and how far and deeper is that?
Mhm. Thanks so much, Osama. Thanks so much, all the organizers, for this opportunity to address such a distinguished participants. Also, I'd like to thank Osama personally for coming to Kyrgyzstan and for inspiring us to build community networks and to bring connectivity to people in especially rural and remote areas of the country. If speaking about the topic of the session today, access during the pandemic, I'd like to come maybe with two angles. One from the democracy standpoint, and second from the education standpoint. If we speak about democracy, if you open the BBC website today, it says Peru had three presidents in the last 1 week. Well, Kyrgyzstan is in a similar situation. We had three presidents in the last 1 month, within 1 month. I think partially because of the pandemic, we had a popular uprising in the early October after the parliamentary elections. And exactly on that night, we had a blackout. And we kind of get used to this luxury of having internet, that you don't think what happens if you don't have the connectivity. And that night you could really understand that there is no more landlines, there is no radio. So only thing that connects you is the internet. And when it was shut down, it was very difficult. So you would come outside, you would hear these explosions and shootings, and you would know what's happening. You can call your parents to see if everything is okay. Luckily, everything kind of unfolded in Kyrgyzstan, I think, peacefully. But this demonstrated the importance of having internet connectivity. And you, Osama has mentioned, there are communities in Kyrgyzstan and in other developing countries that have permanent blackouts. And this is the area where our organization, Internet Society Kyrgyz chapter, would like to focus. So here I'd like to talk about the education aspects. When the pandemic hit, all the schools, of course, went to the remote studying. Unfortunately, not all the kids were able to access online education because they had no internet, one. Even if they had internet, they had no devices, two. And third big issue is digital skills. The kids had difficulties using technologies, and more importantly, teachers had difficulties using technologies. So these are the aspects that we really have to pay attention to when thinking about bringing online education and connectivity. So Ministry of Education decided to bring internet to every school of the country, which is about 2,200. And they estimated that they connected all the schools except 20. And we at the Internet Society, and these 20 schools are the most remote, most difficult to access villages, high in the mountains, very far away. So we took it as a challenge for our organization that we should bring connectivity to these most difficult areas of the country. And the community network that we built a couple of years ago in a village called Susamur, in a very high mountainous area, is serving for us as a model that we can show now to the residents of the other villages, that you, even if you live in a small village, you have no resources, you can still build a network that will function and provide connectivity, which is even better than in the capital city of Bishkek. And this is what happened in Susamur. But of course, we didn't know all the conditions of these 20 villages where the schools were located. So we start with the interim step of bringing internet in a box. And that's the logo behind me called Ilim Box. Translated is a box full of knowledge. And this is a little box that we were bringing to these unconnected schools. It's full of educational content, Han Academy videos in Kyrgyz language, electronic books, online classes, and we brought all these devices to every of the 20 unconnected schools in the country. And at the same time, we discussed with the local communities that there is an opportunity for you to have a real internet. We have the technology, we have the know-how, and if necessary, we can help you fundraise. And currently, we are discussing with several of these villages that in order to bring kind of this model of community networks to these villages. So with that, I'd like to maybe conclude the introductory part, and I'll be happy to share more information in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Hey, wonderful, Talant. I didn't know that you had 3 presidents in the last couple of months.
And in the last 1 month.
Just 1 month. Wow. I mean, all of us think that we have the worst situation as far as the democracy is concerned, but we always have, you know, much worse available somewhere else to take example and feel better about. But thank you very much for taking the ilm. You know, ilm is like ilm. It's an Arabic word for knowledge.
Knowledge, right?
Yes. So I think I'm not surprised that you have made this box. A box of chocolate has become a box of knowledge, and you are taking it to the community, which is great. Anand. You recently posted video of doing some community networks. You also did interview with me and many other people about community networks, that what you are learning. What kind of learning you can share from your area, which is particularly very, anecdotal in the time of pandemic, that one can learn from and when one can relish. Over to you.
Thank you, Osama, for this opportunity. Hello and greetings from Nepal. So actually, schools in Nepal were shut down for more than 6 months. And as one of the out of the 33 fundamental rights given to us by Nepal Constitution, access to education is one of our fundamental rights. And during the pandemic, all the schools were shut down, and some of the boarding schools were going online. Students were taking online classes, and at the same time, the students and the schools in the remote part of the Nepal, where there is no connection uh, internet connection is a bit far away. Electricity connection is one of the major challenge in those areas where micro hydroelectricity is providing the electricity channels. The national transmission lines haven't been raised to those villages. And during this pandemic, while those students were uh, underprivileged and did not have access to any educational content, me in partnership with local government, we deployed a small network that would provide access to more than 8,000 of books, more than 3,000 audio books, collection of 2,000 and more videos and other contents in Nepali language. And all of the curricular activities, the subjects from class nursery to 12 and other resources were added in Nepali content. And along with that, as Talent mentioned, we also um, uploaded the offline Khan Academy version, and those educational content were actually broadcasted using wireless access point, so that student in that village can access that network using the wireless facility in their mobile phone, laptop, or they could also use the computers in the school facility. So this provided opportunity to those students to get access to educational content while the schools were shut down. And that is it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing that there is a lot of stress on how to find the education solution at the time of pandemic. Maybe because what happened is at the time of pandemic, when people got isolated in their home, it is the large population of our children, our young and youth who were going out of home to get their education, suddenly got isolated in house, and and since they're aged, since they are young, then they're children, I mean, they are restless, they need some engagement, they need something for themselves. And that actually put the entire digital divide issue in a different paradigm. For the last 20 years, I think we never discussed about digital divide. We were only talking about digital inclusion or digital exclusion, or how to make everybody included. But we never knew that even though we are connected, we are actually not meaningfully connected or not meaningfully accessed. And that's the reason why CNX this year made a topic for itself: meaningful access. Because if you talk about bandwidth, if you don't have enough bandwidth, you cannot access education. If you don't have enough good equipment, you cannot have online health access. If you don't have if you have only 2G, you cannot do transactions, you cannot make online payment, you cannot do so many work, which is life critical. And that is what we actually experienced in the time of pandemic. For example, in India, Kashmir was shut down for the longest period of history in the entire world. And we just did a research study on how it affected business, entrepreneurship, behavior, culture, so many things. It's not only about that you only do commerce or you only do education or health. I mean, there's so many things that you get affected, because it is actually no less than an oxygen in the current time. I was shocked to note that in Kashmir, people were copying messages in a pen drive and then transferring it to the airport, giving it to somebody else. When you get a network, you post it on their behalf. Those kind of experience was noted in many places. Many of our children started committing suicide because they didn't have a mobile to connect, they didn't have a laptop to connect. One thing I want to quickly go back, and I would request all three of you to be two minutes each, is that how do you think a community network, because we discussed in our previous session that community networks provide a great opportunity to provide access, provide internet to the people who live in remote areas. But we also discussed that why it is not being able to scale. And if it is get scaled, then you have more democratic rights, you have more exercise of your rights, and so on and so forth. And what I realized is that one of the big challenge that it faces is of scaling up is because of huge infrastructural requirement or the financial resources requirement. But we want to learn from you, all three of you. You have different areas of experience. Is that how do we take this democracy? I will say digital democracy. Wireless for community or wireless network or the community network is no less than a piece of digital democracy. How can we take this digital democracy to the mass level?
Of course, digital democracy should be expanded as much as possible, because the initial idea of internet as itself was to connect people and to, share the information. And now when we have more activities in the digital, let's say, sphere, or some people call it cyberspace, we can feel that sometimes we can be restricted in our actions. For instance, coming back again to the affected areas, because it's like a rich case study on connectivity. We had elections. Myanmar had elections on like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, sorry. And the thing is that before elections itself, all the electoral campaigns were mostly of them were brought to the digital space, like using the social media platforms, using messengers, various types to distribute them campaign points of the political parties. However, the affected areas, I'm talking about Rakhine State and some township of Chin State, first of all, as they were not connected. Second of all, they were deliberately taking a part of the election process. So people basically didn't have access to information like as they could have with connectivity and with access to internet. They have this very much restricted, and plus there was in some townships of Rakhine State, there were no elections process as itself. So because the situation was quite risky, as was explained by the government, and elections in election points were not opened there, unfortunately. And in this case, we can say that people are kind of put a part of the entire world development and entire idea of digital democracy, and they cannot, as you also mentioned before, they just cannot exercise any rights, either digital, either in the physical world right now. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Talent.
Thanks so much. Maybe I can address this question with three words. It's accessibility, with three abilities: accessibility, sustainability, and usability. So in order to expand the scale these community networks and to scale digital democracy, you need these three requirements filled. I think, and you mentioned this actually, Osama. So accessibility is the availability of equipment, of the infrastructure. And when we were building the Susamir community network, we were learning on the go. But now we realize that equipment is becoming cheaper, even it's becoming more accessible. So this requirement is more or less possible to fulfill. Second, the sustainability part, the money, the resources that you need to do this. Actually, when we went around these villages, the 20 villages, we discovered, we thought the money was the hardest part, but we discovered that actually some of the villages, they have their own resources. They have the money to invest, or they have potential sponsors who can help them do this. So even the money is not such a big issue. So I think the third part, the usability, the knowledge, the know-how is the most difficult part. So how to build a community network, how to understand this spectrum issues, how to understand the licensing, how to get the permits. This is the most difficult part. So even if you have the equipment, even if you have the money, but understanding the law requirements, going to the regulator and getting the license to be able to use the frequencies, this is the most difficult and most time-consuming part. And I think working with the government and explaining to them that it's actually beneficial, that maybe you don't need to have little village level telcos have a national license. Maybe you can come up with a small village level experimental kind of papers, which would make it very easy for village residents to launch their own community networks and to become part of the digital democracy. So I think this requires a lot of knowledge building for the residents in the village, for those who are building it, and for the government as well. So with that, I would like to end.
Wonderful. I am cooking some very pertinent question, which I'll come back in the next round, but just wait for a few seconds before we talk to Anand to hear from you on the same point of digital democracy. If you have an example to share.
Yeah, while talking about the digital democracy, if we go in case of Nepal, I was seeing just the data from last couple of years. Our government agency says we have already reached 75% of internet coverage within this year. So that means the 3/4 of our population is already connected to the internet. And among that, uh, the only 20% of people are using the fixed broadband, which means it's wired internet, and rest of the devices are on the mobile internet. So we can say that we have reached our maximum level of mobile literacy, and people are connecting to the internet using the mobile. But at the same time, while people are being connected, the question of digital literacy comes over there, and that is one of the part that we can see. And another part is the rest of the 25 percentage which have not been connected are one of the most rural areas of our country. That is, connecting those population is much harder than connecting the rest of the 75 percentage of the population. Taking internet to that 25% will be much harder than before. And uh, while we see the fixed broadband status of Nepal, we have doubled the number of fixed broadband users in only 2 years. It was in 10% penetration rate in 2 years ago, but we have reached to 20%. And with use of the Nepal Telecommunication Authority Rural Technology Development Fund, a lot of rural areas are being connected to the fiber network. And I hope within a couple of years we will reach all the mobile broadband will be replaced by the fiber internet. But the question remains at the another portion of the population, which is 25%, and that population needs the community network that we want to build. And building a community network in those communities will be harder, so we need to come up with local solutions that can be a low cost wi-fi equipment that we are using, like talent sword or box that is used in schools to provide educational access. We can create some local solutions with local content to give them access to different educational and other contents, so that despite of internet connection, people can be digitally literate and they can access much of the content if they are offline also. And for a minimum requirement, we can set up a minimum facility wireless network by setting up communication and information resource centers, and those centers can be established in villages, so that if people need a regular internet access, they can go there and access the internet. And I think this way we can connect those unconnected people that are very rural and hard to reach. Thank you.
Wonderful. I want to do some hard, pinpoint on numbers, and I want to go back to Svetlana first, and then Talant, and I will end with Anand before we get into the question and answer. Svetlana, are you around?
Yeah.
Network. Oh, okay, you're around. Okay, so I want to ask you. Which city are you in at the moment?
Well, Yangon is about 7 million population. It's actually like population of Kyrgyzstan, I guess.
So you are in Yangon, and you are using mobile network or broadband or ADSL or landline?
Broadband and data as well. It's depends on where I am and what I need it for.
And how much the part of your Myanmar is connected through mobile, because mobile is the highest penetration?
85%.
85%. Do you think that 85% people who are connected are able to exercise their rights, democratic rights, because they are connected?
Partially. Partially.
Yeah. So that also means that having connected doesn't mean that you can exercise all your democratic rights, right?
Well, I mean, to exercise rights is you have to know that you have a right to exercise that, because in some communities the concept of having a right for something is not existing.
Wonderful. Yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to have an overview that we always say that without electricity we can't run internet, and everybody says that we don't have 24/7 electricity. That doesn't mean that you need to talk on internet or use internet 24/7. but we always complain that it is not available. So, in many people who are doing community networks or doing offline network, it's kudos to them that they don't have to wait for to do it 24/7 and all the time connected. Like LM box, if it is going, it doesn't have to be fully connected to the internet. As long as you can taking the digital content and the context of the people, and if they are supposed to be connected, then you do online and offline kind of mix. So I'll ask the same question. Talant, you are in Bishkek. What network are you using?
I am in Bishkek. It's actually a very interesting question. We are in the home-based work because of the COVID. And in my home, which is in Bishkek, I only have mobile internet. And it's very bad. It gets disconnected every 15 minutes. So to be able to participate in this call today, I came to our little office of Internet Society to have a stable connectivity. So just imagine that in Bishkek, if you have such difficulties connecting, then what's happening in the rural areas?
So you certainly defined that to get a meaningful connectivity or meaningful access, you had to shift the location, the geographic location, because it is available somewhere, it is not available somewhere. The quality issue is somewhere, the quality issue is not somewhere. The second question in the same way, how many places you have been able to take LM box?
Well, we have started this project even before coronavirus crisis. So we've covered about 100 schools. But then when COVID hit, the Ministry of Education made a big push to connect all the schools. So we focused on those schools that are most difficult to access. And we brought it's about 20 schools that we covered lately.
So your LM box gives education in a box, but does it also gives connectivity in a box?
For now, it's only a digital library which doesn't require active internet connectivity. So it's purposed exactly for the locations where they have no internet. But we want to make these LM boxes in the future smart boxes. And in cooperation with mobile operators, we would like to insert a SIM card. So at least there would be mobile internet available through the LM boxes.
Wonderful, great. Thank you for your contribution.
If I can add one more last point, Osama, on electricity. We discovered that one of the villages where we brought LM box, it's called Zardali. They have no electricity. They are so far away in the mountains that the road doesn't come all the way. You have to go through a mountainous path for 4 hours. And since they have no electricity, kids have no smartphones. They have no computers because there is no need for that. And even our LM box wouldn't work. So together with our LM box, we brought them a large solar panel. So now they have a little solar panel and then some solar lights for the street. So now they have little light, they have little electricity, and they have little LM box. Thank you.
Wonderful, great. Thank you very much, because these local anecdotes makes the life very interesting. Thank you. Anand, you actually showed that you vanished. So you're certainly got subject to either the bad connectivity or the internet was playing on you. So you are in Kathmandu, right?
No, currently I am not in Kathmandu. I am in western part of Nepal. It is a bit rural from Kathmandu. So I am having some fiber connectivity and mobile data as a backup. I don't know when my internet goes off. That's the scenario over here.
So you are having a pipe as well as the mobile data, to back it up. So certainly, in most of our cases, even though we are hyper connected, even though we have a control over what network are we using, where are we using, and things like that, we still have this huge subject of meaningful access and reliable access or seamless access, or the access which allows you to exercise your educational right, information right, and all kind of rights. So that is exactly what I was trying to check in all our situation. I am sitting in Delhi and I am keeping my mobile 4G always on and ready to use it as a hotspot. As soon as my other network goes down, which I'm connected through. I'm connected through Wi-Fi, but it is based on the ISP who is giving connectivity to my office, and I have been connected to my office. So I'm using my office Wi-Fi with a line of sight coming to my home, which is only a few hundred meters away from my office. So, but even though we have bought 40 Mbps, there is always this issue of blackout. Sometimes it keeps getting blackout. But thank you very much for a very, very lovely localized, contextualized sharing of information. I would like to just go back to see our if there are questions, and I would like to request every one of you who is watching this to please type your question in the Q&A. I see a huge list of people participating. I see Waqas is there from Pakistan. I see Sarbani is there. I see, Nisarat is there. I see a lot of people who are participating, who are the larger community network, people playing various roles all over the world, different parts of the world. Is there anybody who has a kind of question? And before anybody types their question, I would like to also, Locknet is there, wonderful. APC's Locknet is there, who also made a comment on Talent's discussion, which was very nice. But I would like to encourage everyone who is attending to please pose your questions. And before that, I would like to ask Talent one more thing that was, tinkering in my head, is that when you took the Ilim box to the remote area, to the remote schools where there is no connectivity, these are all government schools, right?
That's correct. So we have public schools and we have private schools. Usually private schools have no difficulties with internet connectivity, and they are mostly based in urban areas because only urban population can afford, I guess, a private school. But around the country, we have 2,200 public schools.
Okay, and is government paying you for this box?
Well, actually, we don't want to burden the government, but we want the government's interest and endorsement. But we do the fundraising ourselves, and the actual work is done by volunteers. So it's our volunteers who are devoting time and efforts and going to very difficult areas, spending sometimes 24 hours by car and then 4 hours on a donkey or by foot, these kinds of places.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Anand, can you share that when you took the network to the place, what kind of challenge did you face in terms of local usage, in terms of local sustainability or maintenance and management?
There are two of the major reasons or obstacles that we face in rural areas. One of them is the electricity itself, because those rural areas doesn't have the uh, national transmission line connected to their electricity. They are using their village based micro hydro electricity to power their lights, and that is the source of electricity for everything. And as our network is powered by electricity, electricity is one of the major challenges. And another is the interest of people in digital uh, contents is one of the major challenges that we are facing in uh, communities, because people do have access to smartphones, but they don't know how to use all the features of those smartphones. People has been uplifted from a basic phone to smartphone, but they are using it just to take photos and all. But if we do have provided them access to all the contents and reading materials that they can use for free of cost, they are not actually using much of it. Some of the students are interested and are using the those facilities, but most of the population doesn't want to go over the digital content. That is one of the major challenges we are facing.
Svetlana, do you do you have a memory of an example of how these community networks, when they go locally, because one of the challenges of community networks or its sustainability is how do you locally manage it, because if you want to exercise access for various rights and privileges, it is also important that it works, apart from the regulatory issue, apart from the functionality issue and all that. Do you have a memory of how best it is managed locally in your area?
Well, I mean, this is quite specific question in terms of monitoring of networks there. As far as MCRB is like mostly taking a monitoring on business conducting, something similar. So we mostly put our focus on if they respect digital rights as it is. So if, let's say, if there is a spot where they want to have a community network or build a tower for distribution of data or something. So first of all, we are looking if there is no discrimination or something based on ethnicity, of course, the language and etc. Then if it's with agreement of the local community, local township authorities. Of course, we also are monitoring on how this service is provided to the recipients. So is it, I mean, in terms of speed, is it okay? In terms of content which they provide, if it's okay. So like not only, let's say, propaganda websites are allowed or are accessible, and not only Facebook, which is, by the way, by default called an internet here in Myanmar. And of course, privacy and data protection, which is a separate topic, which absolutely unknown for Myanmar in the concept as it's known in the EU or the US, for example. So this is the points which we are looking on. And for example, we always, if we notice something that goes against of a digital rights principles, we always notify business about that. And there are also other members of the digital rights community here who working on the spots, and they monitor the situation on the field then. And as far as I know, I mean, we don't have a specific case on that, unfortunately, as MCRB, because as I said, our focus is a bit different. But I guess people, like the major challenge for people is a digital literacy in this case. So even if they have the connectivity, if they have access to community-based networks, not all of them really understand how to exercise it fully. Thank you.
Yeah, so that is what I think Anand was highlighting, that how much it is important to have critical thinking, digital literacy, the understanding of how you can use network and so on and so forth. I would like all the three panelists to be around, and I'm going to request my team here that do we have video to share? And once we share those video, I would like to come back to all three of you to be ready with one-line tweetable comment from you, very short and crisp, and that is how we will end the session.
यहाँ हमारे इदारे में ये 3 साल का एक एग्रीकल्चर का डिप्लोमा है, जिसमें कंप्यूटर का जो पार्ट है वो इसके कोर्स का हिस्सा है। हमें रिमोट एरिया होने की वजह से काफ़ी मसले थे कि इसका एक जो ईमेल या नेट के हिसाब से जो बच्चों को ट्रेनिंग देनी थी उसमें काफ़ी मुश्किलात थी। इस प्रोजेक्ट की वजह से अब हमारे बच्चे नेट की ये सहूलत, इनको अच्छी खासी ट्रेनिंग भी यहाँ मिल रही है। अब ये इतने लेवल पे आ गए हैं कि ये अपने मुख्तलिफ सब्जेक्ट के बारे में नेट से मदद भी हासिल कर रहे हैं।
इंटरनेट का तो हमें बहुत फ़ायदा हुआ है, यानी कि हमारे रिश्तेदार बाहर रहते हैं तो उनसे हम बात करते हैं, अम्मी अबू बड़े खुश होते हैं बात करके। तो हमारे भाई भी हैं वो भी बाहर रहते हैं। तो दूसरा ये कि हम काश्तकारी करते हैं, तो अगर हमें यानी कि कोई प्रॉब्लम आती है या कोई ऐसा मसला होता है तो हम इंटरनेट पे देख लेते हैं, तो हमें बहुत फ़ायदा हो जाता है। उस वक्त फ़ौरन हमें घर बैठे हर चीज़ का पता चल जाता है।
की खास बात ये होती है कि ये इनकी सबसे खास बात ये कि हाइट है या नैरो डिस्टेंस है कि इनको इस डिस्टेंस पे अब क्यों होना है।
मेरा नाम इकरा मुमताज़ है, मैं क्लास 6 में पढ़ती हूँ। पिछली दफ़ा हमने इंग्लिश में टेंस पढ़ रहे हैं, पिछली दफ़ा हमने प्रेजेंट परफेक्ट कंटिन्यूस टेंस पढ़े हैं, और साइंस में स्पेस और सैटेलाइट्स, मेटियोर्स, मेटियोराइड, मेटियोर्स, और ये मैथ में अलजबरा। हम सुबह को स्कूल आते हैं, हम सब दोस्त मिलकर इंटरनेट के ज़रिए पढ़ते हैं। टीचर हमें पढ़ाती हैं, हमें पढ़ने में बहुत मज़ा आता है।
मेरा नाम साला बुशरा है, मैं 6 क्लास में पढ़ती हूँ। मुझे इस क्लास से पढ़ने का बहुत मज़ा आता है। मुझे पहले इंटरनेट से कुछ मालूम नहीं था, अब मैं मुल्तान में बैठे इस्लामाबाद वाले टीचर से पढ़ सकती हूँ।
मेरा नाम साइमा है, मैं 6 क्लास में पढ़ती हूँ। मेरा ताल्लुक़ मुल्तान से है। मुझे इस तरह पढ़ने से मज़ा आता है और छुट्टी करने को दिल नहीं करता।
माशाल्लाह वो बहुत गेन कर रहे हैं इन क्लासेस से। पहले वो पैसिव रहते थे, अब उनको ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग लगता है।
तकरीबन एक 1.5 साल पहले कॉमसेट्स इंटरनेट सोसाइटी ने यहाँ पे हमें फ्री इंटरनेट सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड की थी। क्योंकि ये रिमोट एरिया है, यहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा इस चीज़ की ज़रूरत थी। बहुत सारे जो हमारे प्रॉब्लम्स है वो सॉल्व हो गए इन द वे के ऑनलाइन, जैसे हमारी रजिस्ट्रेशन होती है स्टूडेंट्स की 5th 8th की या 10th की, या और बहुत से काम होते हैं।
Wow, so wonderful. And it was flawless. Yeah, it was flawless. Nice to see lots of drone shots. I was thinking it was only going to be drone, or are we going to meet some people? But good, we also met some people. I am particularly very proud that W4C was started with ISOC and India, with DEF in India 10 years back, which has now progressed to Nepal and Pakistan and so many places. Shivangi, do we have more videos?
Yes, we have.
Hello everyone, this is Michael from ASOCOM. I'm here happy to share what we are doing. The ASOCOM stand for Alternative Solution for Rural Communities. We are building community networks as a connectivity strategy for rural and remote Myanmar. We envisioning the community to be a better, healthy and sustainable society with the ultimate goal to solve communication problem for the rural and remote area of Myanmar and establish an inclusive informal education system including knowledge, skill, and information sharing platform. Our core service is to solve the economic, social, and environmental challenges in this specific community. Here I would like to share the way forwards of 2020 to 2021 of the ASOCOM. We are in the process of creating movement in the communities, such as solving the challenges collectively. We are crafting our team to be more professional and be more social entrepreneurship. We have done our research on the women in our communities. The findings shows that more domestic violence on women during the lockdown period. Therefore, we are committed to focus our activities on women, PWDS, LGBTI, and children issues in this fiscal year. Thank you very much.
Beautiful music. Wonderful. So we go to the last video.
पूरे रन की बात करेंगे तो पूरे रन में 48,000 लोग वो नमक पका रहे हैं अभी। पूरा इलाका ये 5,000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर छूट गया था गवर्नमेंट में, वो भी इतने लोग ये नमक पका रहे, उसको भी कोई रिकॉर्ड नहीं था। पूरा रन है 72 में घुड़खर अभ्यारण्य ने ये सेंचुरी डिक्लेयर किया है कि जो अभी घुड़खर अभी बचे हैं तो ये अगरिया की वजह से बचे हैं। जो अगरिया को पानी पीना मिलता है वो भी पीते हैं।
सारा प्रताप गाम ओढ़ूया गरना, सारा प्रताप गाम ओढ़ूया गरना, पवनी भांगी पीड़रे गांगड़ू वालो लाग्यो से, पवनी भांगी पीड़रे गांगड़ू वालो लाग्यो से।
एक तो पीवा का पानी की तकलीफ और तो वो छापरा का कोई साधन नहीं है बराबर। एवा गवर्नमेंट केम नहीं बोलता कि तंबू बम्बू कहीं कर दो अगरिया माटे।
ચાલો અમે છોકરાને ભણાવી કરે પછી નહીં ભણાવે, આ મજૂરી વખત ભણાવે છે ને બચારા।
ખૂબ જ એમ કે જે દૂર દૂર જે અંતરોથી દેખાય છે એ બાળકો જોઈને ખૂબ જ મજા આવે છે। દાખલા તરીકે દિલ્હીનો પ્રસારણ એ અહીંયા બેઠા બેઠા ઇન્ટરનેટ દ્વારા એ માહિતી મેળવી અને ખૂબ જ આનંદમાં આવે છે।
अगरिया का जो मैप है उसके अंदर उसके गामड़े आ जाते हैं, उसके अंदर उनका जो वेल है वो आ जाता है, उनके सॉल्ट पैन है वो आ जाते हैं और उनका जो घर है ये आ जाता है।
यहाँ पे हमने मैपिंग किया, साथ ही साथ कोऑर्डिनेट्स लिया। फिर हम लोग एक डेटा तैयार करेंगे और गवर्नमेंट को भी शो किया जाएगा कि देखिए ये लोग एग्जिस्ट करते हैं यहाँ पे और सॉल्ट फार्मिंग करते हैं, 9 महीना रन के अंदर रहते हैं और बहुत सारे चैलेंजेस फेस करते हैं।
Wonderful. This was a little longer, but I myself was enjoying it, even though it belongs to our work, because it has been a long time. I have seen this video. Yeah, it was nice. Great. Thank you very much, Shivangi, for showing all this video. I don't know how many of you had seen it earlier, even though it was available on YouTube. So we are almost closer to the end of the session. We have exactly 3 minutes left as per the scheduled printed time and that we advertised. So I will start with Anand and go back to Svetlana at the end. So we started with a woman and end with a woman. So we'll be secure and taken care of properly. Yeah. So Anand, do you have a comment, tweetable comment to end this session with?
So talking about community network, while we install in rural villages, gives access to those people who needs it the most. That is my comment. Thank you.
Wonderful. So community networks actually is used, needed, and goes to the people who need it most, not to the people who have already got it and need it the least. Yes, Talant.
Thanks so much, Osama. Well, I would like to say that when we speak about access during the pandemic and the education, much of the focus has been on the student. But as we saw on the last video, I think we should not neglect the teacher. So we do need to provide trainings, education, capacity building for teachers as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you, Talant. Svetlana, the last word.
Well, I cannot, okay. Well, from my side is responsible connectivity, because connectivity is playing a great role and we have to reach this connectivity without undermining anybody's human and digital rights. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Connectivity is also responsibility, right? Thank you very much for all your participation. Obviously, through you people, we did not only travel the 3 different countries, but we also traveled to Pakistan and India, and we traveled to many experiences through the knowledge that you have shared. Thank you very much. This CNX 2020 is just started, which was today, and we will be again coming back on 23rd, then 26th, and then 30th, and then 2nd, and then 4th to end with. But we will always be 1.5 to 2 hours to be very precise. And we would like to request all the panelists to not only you join again, but you also bring more people from your network to join, because I think this is also a learning session for many of our practitioners on the ground. And it might be nice to see the localized practitioners to log in and see how, an international discussion going on, which can benefit them, and we can also highlight them online. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for tolerating our mistakes, which we might have committed while we were online. These small little glitches. We'll see you again on 23rd. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.